Hello again. Welcome back to Dan Weston's channel. I said I was going to do a video about supposedly maybe one of you is out there that has not started a retirement account with your employer. Um, as crazy as it sounds. Okay, so this is going to be more of showing some common portfolio allocations that you could do. I did a one video shot of this and it was a disaster. I'll be honest with you. So I'm going to cover each one, and we're specifically talking about for your 401k, which I'm talking about all three. But it's easier to say 401k. So we'll get into it. I will release a video for each of these five topics, and that'll be it. They'll be shorter videos. Some people like the shorter content. Not everything needs to be 2 hours. So we'll cover this here. There, for your purposes, there's practically no difference between the different types of retirement accounts. You're like, dude, I have a 403b. What the should I pick a 401? It's not your decision which one you pick. It's your employer. It's the only difference is the structure of your employer, which determines which account you get. If you work for a for-profit business, you get a 401k. If you work for a church, school, hospital, stuff like that, you're going to have a 403b. If you work for the government, you're going to have a 457b, which is what I have. It's just the IRS tax code. Uh, you can see annual contributions, same across the board. Catch-ups are the same. There's slight differences in like how you can do withdrawals for like different situations for withdrawals, emergency wise. Like I can't withdraw my 457b funds as long as I'm still employed by the government. There's like no way to take those funds. I can take loans. That's it. 401ks, you have more options. Granted, you're going to get a penalty if you take things out early. So the differences are subtle. So there's that. So it's not your decision. You get whichever one your employers offer. If you're self-employed, I'm not going to cover in this series self-employed options because that could be something else later on. I'm not that much of an expert on that. So today we're going to cover, say you want to put all of your option one, you put all of your retirement account in the S&P 500. So little talk about that. So let's say this is the easiest thing to do, right? You just pick the S&P 500 account in your mutual fund and off you go to the races. So what are the disadvantages of that? Well, basically, and advantages. So the S&P 500 has been on a tear. I don't think anyone's going to disagree. Here it is. It's been one of the greatest investments in the history of the whole world's markets. So just buy the top 500 companies in the US. It does well over long periods of time. It's been researched, proven. So it's a solid option for you in your retirement account. It's going to be low fees. It's probably the lowest fee option you have in your retirement options. You're not going to have inefficiencies regarding like international companies you could own that, there could be tax inefficiencies and there's political risks of international companies. You have none of that. It's just the 500 biggest companies in the US. Easy to understand. Okay, so that's where we start. You can see annualized returns. You're going to get, expectation wise, annualized returns with dividends. 9% is what people usually say. So that's about what you can expect. So depending on the time frames, you can see it's like 8-9% is the average return of the US stock market. So one thing you should keep in mind, it's never 9%. You can see here, it's usually all over the place. It averages 9, but you can see there's years when it's down, real down. And then there's years when the market does exceptionally well. So don't think of it as just 9% per year when you calculate it. It's trickier than that. So here's the returns by year. So this is like the most straightforward, easy thing you can do. Just 100% US stocks, bro. Okay. So that's your option. Now I should say, what are the negatives? Okay. The negatives are you don't have exposure to international companies. So all the other countries in the world, you have no exposure to their stock market at all. So you can look at this chart and it shows there are periods where this is kind of an outlier, like the last like 12, 13 years, US stocks have done better than international. All right. But in the past, you have seen there's been periods where international stocks have outperformed US. So you have no exposure to the international if you do just an S&P 500 in your retirement account. So that's one negative. However, you can see the US has outperformed and done exceptionally for some time now. And if you believe that with AI and robotics and tech stocks will keep doing well, this should perform well for you still. But you're missing out on companies that there are companies that perform better than the US. So this 2023, you can see there were stock markets that outperformed the US: Taiwan, Spain, Brazil, Italy, Mexico, Greece, Poland. You had no exposure to those, even though they outperformed the US. So you trade-offs, the US has done well in the past. It's been a great investment in the past. It should do well in the future. However, you lack exposure to certain markets in the world. But it's easy to invest. It's easy to understand. So that's the S&P 500. Warren Buffett, which I should say, Warren Buffett, if you like Warren Buffett, this is what he's telling you should buy, the S&P 500. In fact, he says when he passes away, most of his money is going to go to an S&P index fund. He does like a 10% to, I think it's treasuries or something. But for all intents and purposes, this is what Warren Buffett tells you should do: 100% US stock, bro. So you can see if you do this, I'll use this chart in other ones. The big thing to remember, though, so you think, damn, this is easy. It's the best performing index. Surely I'll buy it. It's low fee. I mean, this is 10x, bro. Well, here's the negatives. Besides no international stock exposure, international stocks can do better than the US market, in different periods. But also, this is the biggest risk with this type of allocation. You're going to have the mother of all volatilities. So the bottom line would represent a portfolio of 100% US stocks over almost 100 years. Okay, this chart represents. You can see you got the best return for sure, but you also experienced extreme volatility. That's what the 54 and the negative 43 represent: the volatility of the best and worst years. So if you're a person that can't handle volatility, if you open your statements that the retirement account sends you, and there's a year like last year when the markets were down 20% and you panic, if you're the type of person that will panic and think about doing something irrational like selling or cashing, God forbid you cash out your 401k, this might be a bad way to invest your retirement account if you can't handle that volatility. So I can show you 30, 40 year performance charts that show this is a great investment. However, there's been bumps in the road and you will experience those. Also, if you are in a line of work where maybe there's a risk of you being unemployed and maybe there's a chance you might have to, God forbid, have to cash out your 401k, these things can go together. We go into a great recession in the US, which correlates to the stock market dropping in the US, which correlates to your business doing poorly and you get laid off. And now you are in a bad spot and you need to cash out your retirement. And then the stock market crashes. It all just snowballs at the same time. And it's really bad for you. So that's a negative of just being totally in the US stock market. You are exposed to extreme volatility being in one country's index. So you're not diversified. You're diversified in the US, but you're not diversified across assets or country or different stock markets in the world. So would I suggest this for anybody? I don't know. The other part, when you get older, you're going to want less volatility, because if the market sustain, say you get 10 years out from retirement, let's say, you can't handle these broad swings of volatility anymore, because now you're getting to the end and you might have to start pulling 4% of your retirement to when you retire, 4% withdrawal. If the stock market tanks, this is going to damage your returns. That volatility could really get you. So you're going to have to, at some point in the future, if you do 100% S&P 500, you're going to have to eventually start bringing in bond exposure to decrease volatility of your investment. So you can't set it and forget it. At some point in the future, you're going to have to start increasing cash and bond exposure. So this is not a set it and forget it method for your retirement account. But you have, the possibilities of the best rate of return of all the options I'm going to show you. I think this best return, also most volatile, and then high and riskiest at the same time. So this is one way. And so for me, I will show you, it would be this one. That would be, if I wanted to do S&P lowest fee, this is my option. It's 0.02% fee, outstanding, lowest fee possible. So if I was to do it, so that's the first one. We will keep these short. 10 minutes, not bad. So we're going to keep these short. And this is your first option. You just go straight S&P 500 for your retirement account. So next we will cover our target date, and we will keep going down the list, and we can figure this out together. All right. Thanks for watching.